Hey friends, it's Michael Kostroff. I have a great question today that actually came from a friend of mine, which is nice. He says, I don't know if it's because of the new SAG-AFTRA deal or if it's an LA thing, but the actors are not required to memorize the lines ahead of the audition or something to that effect are on my appointment emails. I think it's confusing for actors who are on the newer side, scratch that, on any side of the business with regard to how to prepare. I know I would be a clown show if I didn't do the work, do thorough work, including learning the lines, provided that there's time. Now I'm older and it does take me longer, sad to say. I do know that you've spoken about being word perfect, but I do know that some writers and showrunners are quite pissed off if there's a shred of paraphrasing. There are several questions within this question. So, first of all, yes, because of the new SAG-AFTRA guidelines, they can't require you to memorize. I'll just be full disclosure. I think that's a stupid thing that I can't believe actors fought for. It's silly. I think it's silly, and it's again goes back to this faulty notion that casting people are out to get us, and that we have to protect ourselves from the enemy. I think it's really dumb. But they now have to say actors are not required to memorize. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't or that you can't. We all have to honor our process. I learn so much more about what's happening in the scene when I memorize the lines. And I believe that I have the capacity to do it. And I believe that that's part of my actor work. You don't have to. And again, I will always say this. If you're the right choice, they're not going to say, oh yeah, but he was holding the paper. I don't think it's a deal breaker one way or the other. Actors are always asking me, do casting directors feel this way? Do casting directors think this way? What do they respond to? I don't know. Ask 6, you'll get 12 answers. They're individuals. You have to remember that. So there isn't a blanket answer about what casting directors want or how they feel about whatever. So I'm giving you a typical Michael Kostroff inconclusive answer, which is just further proof that there aren't conclusive answers. I'm saying this. They have to tell you that you're not required to memorize. That doesn't mean you should stop yourself from doing it if it's valuable to you in the process, which I believe it is. I also believe you can do it, even if it's a quick turnaround. I think that's part of us showing off what we do. And I think it's good for you in terms of the prep. I think actors really rush to a performance before scrubbing through that text and really understanding what they're saying. So that's one thing. What was the other thing? Yeah, and I agree with my friend that I think it throws off newer actors going, oh, it's just an audition, so I guess I shouldn't do the work. No, as I always say, you're not getting the fucking job. Do the work now. That's the fun. Do the work. Of course you do. Of course you do. The second thing is about being word perfect. So I will stand by my belief that we shouldn't freak out over getting a word or a line wrong because it is still in the audition phase. I have not experienced what my friend described where a showrunner or the showrunner is a different deal because that's after you book it. Writers and showrunners, yes, some writers and showrunners are pissed off if there's a shred of paraphrasing. Right, that's true. In the audition phase, I feel like I'm not going to try to paraphrase, but I also am not going to freak out if I get a word wrong or a line wrong. I'm not going to not send in the audition because it's not word perfect. I just don't believe in that. Most TV shows that I've worked on and most films that I've worked on, even on set, they don't freak out over whether or not you're word perfect. Now, there are exceptions. If you work for Aaron Sorkin or David Simon or David Milch, you should be Milch. I think it's Milch. Anyway, you should be word perfect, of course, because every comma is thoughtfully placed. But that's another issue. We're not talking about that. We're talking about the audition process and about memorizing and all of that. I think actors really freak themselves out over the word perfect thing unnecessarily. at this stage of the game. Doesn't mean you make it up as you go along. Doesn't mean you rewrite the scene to show them how much better it could be. I don't like when actors says, well, I think I would say this. That's wrong. That I can say is wrong, absolutely, because you're not the writer. That's a much later thing. If you get to be a series regular, you might have that kind of conversation. So we've covered a couple of different things today, but I think that I would hate for anyone to undervalue the great tool of memorizing your lines. You know so much more about a scene when you've memorized your lines. So recognize that disclaimer on the casting notice is something that's now required, and it doesn't mean don't do it. Doesn't mean don't memorize. And yeah, I think I've covered this whole thing pretty thoroughly today. At this point in these videos, I usually start repeating myself, so I think I'm not going to do that this time. But instead I'm going to be interested in what you have to say. Again, the actors fought for, don't give us too many pages or too many lines to learn. And I think to me, that's when we show off what we do. I'm like, great. I've got 2 hours and it's gonna be 12 pages. Guess what? Watch this. I'll do the best I can, and I won't complain about it, and I'll come up with something. And I think to me that's a lot more of a fun challenge rather than saying you can't do this to us. So that's a whole other video. But anyway, let me know what you think, and I'll be back next week with more thoughts. And that's it.